Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome back to episode number 61 of the Toronto Thunderbirds franchise here on Madden NFL 22, and today we recap the second year here in the franchise that capped off with a Super Bowl victory over the Baltimore Ravens in Super Bowl 57 by a final score of 28-21. So today we're going to recap the season, just go through the story that was the Toronto Thunderbirds year to the Super Bowl, and get ready for year number 3. Yes, there will be a third year of the franchise. The off-season free agency live stream is actually going to be tomorrow on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you don't want to miss it. Mark your calendars, hit that notification bell, hit the subscribe button down below, especially if you want more franchise content. But yes, that is the big blockbuster news to start the episode. There will be a third year. We have a lot to cover, and then we have a lot that this team still has to overcome. You know, how do you defend the Super Bowl title? But nonetheless, we will talk about year 3 in future episodes. But we capped off year 2 by winning the Super Bowl, the very first season of Toronto in Toronto, and they won the Super Bowl. Remember, the former Washington football team relocated to the Rogers Center after Drake purchased the team. He brought the team to Canada, and in their first year in Canada, they brought a Super Bowl to the North, and the first Super Bowl in franchise history in 31 years. So we finally conquered it. Beat the Ravens, where we started off as the 1 seed, destroyed the Bears 44-13. Then we destroyed the Packers 52-27. And then we had a very hard-fought win against the Ravens. We were down 21-7 going into the final quarter and rattled off 21 unanswered points to take the crown of Super Bowl champion. Now, how do we get to the 1 seed though? If you don't remember, here we'll take a look at our schedule and see how we got to this point. Thunderbirds start off with a win against the Bengals on week 1, and then we dropped 2 straight. We lost a hard-fought one at home to the Lions 27-26, and then we actually lost to the Bears 36-28. So we start off 1-2. Rebounded nicely against the Cowboys. Their defense has just been their Achilles heel. Then we beat the Saints 25-23 to get above 500. Beat the Eagles 37-21, and then dropped to the Packers 27-26. So 2 of our losses we actually were able to redeem in the playoffs. So that was kind of nice. But at this point, we were sitting at 4-3, not looking overly impressive. We did have a very impressive win against the Vikings, 48-14, and then destroyed the Texans, who had a horrible year. Overachievers last year, didn't end up so good this year, 61-24. So they're sitting at 6-3, but then dropped 41-38 to the Cardinals on Sunday Night Football. So sitting at 6-4, and straddling about 500, and then we never lost again. Beat the Giants 20-17, beat the Eagles again 34-17, had a bye week. Beat the Colts 45-27, then beat the Giants 26-0. Didn't allow a single point to the Giants, and then slaughtered the Cowboys 40-10. Thursday Night Football, a big one against the Jaguars. This was going to be a tough test. We were on this winning streak, hadn't faced a super imposing team, and we beat the Jaguars 34-30. In the final week of the season, 19-7. Fitzpatrick actually got hurt in that game, and Kyle Allen helped lead us to victory. But an impressive 13-4 season, tapped off with a Super Bowl. And honestly, the reason why this team was so good, in my opinion, is the defense. Our defense was incredible. I like to compare this team to the Ravens the first time they won the Super Bowl, and they had such an elite defense and a quarterback in Trent Dilfer who was just kind of a good game manager. I feel like that's exactly what we had. We had a very good defense. Our front 7 was probably one of the best front 7s you'll ever see. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick just did a good job being a game manager. I mean, who would have thought Ryan Fitzpatrick would be a Super Bowl champion? And then the only difference is we had an MVP at the running back position. The first running back to win the MVP award since Adrian Peterson, Antonio Gibson, a record season. And that capped us off with a Super Bowl. Now let's take a look at our team stats first. You can see them at the bottom. Number 1 offense, number 1 defense in points per game. Had a very good rushing attack. Passing game, 31st in the league. But I mean, when you were running the football 180.5 yards per game, you didn't really need that much of an offensive passing attack. Defensively, rushing, we were 85.5 rushing yards per game given up. And this is the biggest change. In year 1 of the franchise, we were very bad against the pass. This year, 225 passing yards allowed, top 5 defense. Raheem Morris, remember, we had a coaching change going into this year as well. Sean McVay came over from the Rams. He was fired, got a redemption here, won a Super Bowl. He brought over Raheem Morris, his defensive coordinator from LA, who LA's defense last year wasn't that good either, and he turned us into one of the best, well, statistically scoring wise, the best defense in the league. So Raheem Morris, nice turn around as well. He fortunately for us, did not leave for a head coaching position. We'll talk about the head coaching carousel after this, and it was a very, very exciting one, to say the least. Offensively, remember, we also changed coordinators. Greg Olson was our offensive coordinator this year, came over from the Las Vegas Raiders as he had some time with Washington earlier in his career, as we lost our offensive coordinator, Scott Turner, to the Rams. So it was a very big transition period for the Toronto Thunderbirds, and we just capped it off with an incredible run to the Super Bowl. Let's look at the stats now, shall we? Starting off with our team stats. Here is Ryan Fitzpatrick's numbers: 3,777 yards, 24 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. Very good game manager, like I said, at age 40. And he is a free agent after this season. So if he doesn't retire, he doesn't have to come back. So we could be a Super Bowl team replacing our starting quarterback. And I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know if Ryan Fitzpatrick is, certainly starter level anymore. So it'll be very interesting to see what we do at quarterback after winning a Super Bowl, just like the Broncos had to do about 7 years ago. Rushing, what else is there to say about Antonio Gibson? 2,600 yards, 21 touchdowns. He set the NFL rushing record last year and then broke it, shattered it this year. It's turned into a phenomenal running back, up to a 93 overall. If we didn't have Antonio Gibson, this team would just look so different. Fitzpatrick also had 2 rushing touchdowns. Rookie Kyron Williams had 59 yards on 12 attempts. Hopefully we like to space it out from Gibson a little bit more, give Kyron Williams a bigger role in his sophomore campaign. But other than that, nothing really in the run game. Receiving wise, our top receiver was scary Terry McLaurin, 69 catches, 1,101 yards, and 10 touchdowns. McLaurin definitely the go-to receiver this year. I think he definitely stepped it up. Was a little underutilized in year one, but I think we did a good job getting Terry McLaurin the football this year. He is a free agent, and we haven't re-signed Terry McLaurin. He's asking for about 4 years, $78 million last time I checked. Haven't necessarily given him the contract yet. I'd like to lock up Terry long-term, but I don't know if I want to devote almost $20 million a year for 4 years to a wide receiver. He is 26, so that would tie him up to the age 30 campaign, so he still has time to get better. And if we can't get a deal done, we still have the franchise tag. So I fully expect Terry McLaurin to be on the Thunderbirds next year. Second receiver, Dyami Brown, 62 catches, 725 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He definitely stepped up a little bit more in his sophomore season. He got a little bit bigger of a role. He became primarily the slot receiver, and he did a pretty good job. So I'd like to see what Dyami Brown can do in year 3. Now, the odd man out going into this next year could be Curtis Samuel. 50 catches this year, 588 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is very good when he's on the field, but the key word is being on the field. He missed 5 games this year with an injury, and he's missed time in both years in the franchise. Has kind of had a hard time being healthy. Now, when he has the ball in his hands, he is very dynamic. He is a great run after the catch receiver. He's very good at catching the football. He can stretch the defense. But, we do have some pretty solid depth at wide receiver, and if Curtis Samuel can't stay on the field, what is his future here on the team? And we had Antonio Gibson on top of his record-breaking rushing season, had 76 catches for 541 yards and added 5 more touchdowns in the air. Logan Thomas, last year, who had 1,000 yards as a tight end, definitely took a step back. He only had 49 catches for 526 yards and a touchdown. I think with the offensive change to more of Greg Olson's system, that more quick passing attack, and just, running with Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas was definitely the man who suffered the most. He didn't get the football as much, and, took definitely a step back. Hopefully, I like Logan Thomas. I like to keep him around, but the tight end just wasn't a big part of the offense. Adam Humphries came back in the preseason. He made the team. He had 16 catches this year, but he did have 2 touchdowns. John Bates had 13 catches as the backup tight end, and Zay Flowers, the rookie. This is the wild card, I think, going to this year. Last year's 3rd-round pick out of Boston College. He only had 9 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown. But when Zay Flowers was on the field, he showed what he can do. He has star Dev 2, by the way, so we get to see his ability. 96 speed, another man who could take the top off the defense. I think he could do what Curtis Samuel can do as well. So Zay Flowers, I like to see. I can't wait to see what his role can be next year. Not as a dynamic with the football as some of the other receivers you expect from a 5'10" man, but I like what Zay Flowers. I'm excited to see what he can do next year. And Samus Reyes had a touchdown, the first Chilean-born tight end to have a touchdown in the NFL, so that was kind of exciting as well. On the offensive line, I thought our offensive line did a pretty good job. Sack-wise, our worst player was Mitchell Schwartz, but I don't really, take that for granted. Mitchell Schwartz was very good this year. He battled some injury issues, but he never really missed some time. He was the big signing after year one, a superstar tackle, and I think he really helped push our offensive line to the next level. Very good pass blocker, very good run blocker. Helped open the holes for Antonio Gibson on that right side with him and Scherf. So very good job signing Mitchell Schwartz, and we have him for next year. Donovan Smith was the left tackle, so we replaced both tackles, and he did an okay job. He did give up 12 sacks. A lot of good pass rushers in the NFL, and I don't know if Donovan Smith is really starter caliber anymore. I do like to have Donovan Smith next year as a backup. I like to say it's just kind of a swing, third tackle. But I think his days as a starter could be numbered, so he could be replacing our left tackle as well. At the right guard position, we're actually going to go to Brandon Scherf next, our superstar right guard. Only 7 sacks given up. He's an 87 overall. 31 years old, so he's going to start regressing a little bit, but he's still a top 5 right guard. And at left guard this year, we had Eric Flowers, who only allowed 6 sacks, but I do think his time is kind of numbered. He is a free agent after this year, and we did draft Emil Ekiyor Jr. in last year's draft, who had a kind of up and down rookie campaign. He did allow 11 sacks and only 11 games played, but he does have star dev. I think he got some very good experience this year, and I think he's a better pass blocker than run blocker, so I'd like to maybe move him next year to left guard and have Emil Ekiyor Jr. start on that offensive line. And center Chase Roullier, a nice guy to captain the middle of the line, star dev, top 15 center. I mean, we have a very good offensive line, I would say. On defense, the unstoppable defense who caused so much havoc. We're going to start in the run game, and this is where it's at. Look at these stats when I hit sort by tackle for loss. Look at those stats. Jonathan Allen, 25 tackles for a loss, 21 sacks. He was so close to being named Defensive Player of the Year. Unfortunately, it did go to Von Miller, but I mean, that is an incredible season. Jonathan Allen, we know he's a great run stopper. He had a very good year one in the run game, but 21 sacks to go along with it. Moving to a 3-4, I think just unlocked the next level of this defense. A very good move, bringing in Raheem Morris from LA, and boy, did it pay dividends. Matthew Ioannidis, 25 tackles for a loss as well, 16.5 sacks as well, but he is a free agent, and I'm not sure if Matthew Ioannidis is going to be coming back. That'll be something to watch out for going into the offseason. He got injured in the postseason run, so we didn't have him for the whole Super Bowl run, but Matthew Ioannidis, a very good, probably our best pass rusher through the first 2 years. Montez Sweat, he really broke out in year one. He got actually up to superstar dev. And this year, 23 tackles for a loss, 17.5 sacks. So proving that he can do it on both levels, not just a phenomenal pass rusher, but also somebody who can stop the run, also phenomenal stats. And then Chase Young, who you would expect to be our best pass rusher, only had 11 sacks, but he also had 20 tackles for a loss. So we had 4 players who had 20 plus tackles for a loss. That's incredible. The best right outside linebacker rating wise, and another anchor of the defense. I mean, when you have Allen, Ioannidis, Sweat, and Young going after the passer, that is scary. And then you also have Daron Payne, who I think the move to defensive tackle really helped him out. He's kind of always going to be the fifth man out, but he is also 26 years old. He had 4 sacks this year, 13 tackles for a loss. So I think he definitely did a good job eating up blocks and allowing the other men to get through that offensive line. I'll start our tackles now for the second level. Jamin Davis, I always pronounce his name wrong. He had 101 tackles. It was very good having a full season out of Jamin Davis. Remember, he got hurt, missed about 60, 65, 70% of his rookie season. But he was healthy for all this year, turned in 100 plus tackles, a very good coverage linebacker in the middle of the field. It came up with an interception as well. Jamin Davis, a great pick a few years ago, really helped anchor that defense and also took it to the next level. In terms of other linebackers, Cole Holcomb had 76 tackles and 2 interceptions, a very good utility linebacker in more of the nickel regard. And then another linebacker I want to highlight, DeMarvion Overshown, last year's 5th round pick out of Texas. And he has star dev, a very good pick. He didn't have that much this season, but 78 zone coverage, 87 speed. I expect DeMarvion Overshown to take over more of a nickel linebacker next year. If I sorted by sacks, Allen was first, followed by Sweat, Ioannidis, and Young all broke 10 plus sacks. Interception-wise, Kendall Fuller had 5 interceptions. I don't know if you noticed going into the Super Bowl week, but Kendall Fuller actually got superstar dev. So we have a superstar corner going into year 3. I've always liked Kendall Fuller. I thought he was very underrated. He was a 90 overall plus corner, but had star dev. Now he has superstar dev, and he has about 96 man, 90 or 89 zone. We have a bona fide number 1 corner on this team going to next year. Cameron Curl also had 2 interceptions with 102 tackles. That was a team high. He is a very good free safety, very young, who will help be that center field man for the future. And he can also cover tight ends in man coverage. Cole Holcomb, we saw, had 2 interceptions. William Jackson III also had 2 as well. A very good number 2 corner. We just have great levels to all of our facets of the defense. So Jackson and Fuller, very good 1-2 punch. And then this was probably the most underrated man in my opinion, Trey Herndon. Signed to be the nickel corner this year. He made countless plays. Yes, he only had 1 interception, but Trey Herndon had so many deflections. A great nickel corner. I'd love to keep Trey Herndon around for the future. Landon Collins had an interception as well. He's the hit man. Landon Collins is going to be that box safety who forces fumbles, but he is due a good bit of salary this year. He's seen some regression. So I don't know if Landon Collins will be around next year. Maybe we can restructure his contract, because I do like Landon Collins. But that'll also be a nice, interesting story, because we also have Derek Forrest, who played in the absence of Collins, and I thought he played pretty good. He came away with an interception. You know, he's 2 years in the league now. This is his 3rd year. I like to see what maybe he can do. I think his coverage abilities could use some work. He's more of also that box safety that kind of Landon Collins plays, just a little bit more speedy and doesn't hit as hard. But I think Derek Forrest next year could get a chance to shine. Kicking-wise, we brought in Ramigo Blankenship. He got off to a very slow start. He missed a lot of kicks at the beginning of the season, but finally settled down. 53 for 55 field goals, 50 for 54 for extra points. And then Tressway was a very good punter. 26 punts inside the 20. The return game, Antonio Gibson. Who else? 5 kick return touchdowns. I mean, he has always been a very good kick return in the series, but 5 kick return touchdowns and 2 punt return, that is incredible. Over about, let's see, 20, yeah, he had over 30 touchdowns this year. That is why he won MVP. But those are our stats. We want to take a quick look at around the NFL. The leader in passing yards was Trevor Lawrence. He had a great sophomore campaign, 5,300 passing yards. Tom Brady had 52 as well. Malik Willis, the rookie out of Liberty, this year's Offensive Rookie of the Year, was 3rd with 48. And if you look at Malik Willis, he's up to superstar now, so the Saints got themselves their quarterback of the future. Patrick Mahomes had 46, followed by Matt Ryan, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, all had 46 plus. Your touchdowns leader was Trevor Lawrence. He had 40. Malik Willis had 37. Tom Brady had 36. And Baker Mayfield. And then interception, it was Russell Wilson who led the way with 19 interceptions. Brady had 18. Fitzpatrick also had 17. In terms of rushing, we knew it was Antonio Gibson. Nobody else really close. The next closest was 800 yards behind him with Nick Chubb, followed by Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Christian McCaffrey, and a few others got 1,000 yards. Touchdowns, Antonio Gibson, 21 touchdowns. The only person other with 20 was Nick Chubb. Receiving-wise, Robbie Anderson, who was picked up in a preseason trade from the Jaguars, he led the NFL in both receiving yards and receptions, 128 and a 1,600, a great year for Robbie Anderson, and he did get up to superstar dev. I think he deserved it, so that's very good to see for the Jaguars. Mike Evans was next with 1,400 yards, followed by Will Fuller, who was also traded to the Lions in the preseason. So a couple of preseason trades panning out for squads. Andy Isabella of the Cardinals, followed by Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson II, Michael Thomas, T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Lockett, Jarvis Landry, Amari Cooper, DJ Chark, Travis Kelce, who was the top receiving tight end, also at 98 grabs. Robert Woods and a few others had over 1,000 yards. Best rookie, Garrett Wilson of the Eagles, 84 for 1,104 scores. He has star dev. Receptions leader was Robbie Anderson, and Mike Evans were the only ones above 100. But touchdowns, it was Allen Robinson who had 13. Brian Anderson had 12. Rondale Moore also had 12. Evans, Tanyan, and Amari Rodgers all had 11. So Tanyan had the most touchdowns for a tight end. On defense, your Tackle leader was Matt Milano with 149 tackles. That is an insane amount of tackles, followed by Tremaine Edmonds, Pete Werner, Rashawn Evans. Sacks, it was Von Miller. Allen doesn't show up because, NFL doesn't like to fix Madden doesn't like to fix their bugs. Tackles for a loss, 25 from Chandler Jones, Garrett, and we also saw Allen and Ioannidis at 25 apiece. Interceptions, Drew Tranquil led the NFL. A linebacker was 6. Xavier Howard and Kendall Fuller both had 5. In terms of kick return touchdowns, we know Gibson had 5. The only other ones with returns were Anaya Smith of the 49ers, Isaiah McKenzie of the Raiders, Tyler Alligator of the Titans. And then on punt returns, the other 2 had punt returns were Randall Cobb, who actually had a punt return, and Tony Pollard. So that's going to do it for the majority of this episode as we recap year 2. But as we go into year 3, I do want to leave you with the coaching changes around the NFL, as there were a lot of... It was a very exciting coaching carousel. Not a lot of coaches swapped teams, but the ones who did was a pretty big deal. So give me 1 sec, and we'll recap the coaching carousel. All right, now to the final part of today's episode. We're going to take a look at the coaching carousel after the second year here in the franchise, and there wasn't many changes this year in terms of head coach. There's actually only 4 coaches who swapped teams, but they were pretty big ones. We're going to start off with probably the most just common one that you would expect. Brian Flores of the Miami Dolphins was fired after this season. The Dolphins were the worst team in the league this year, despite acquiring Deshaun Watson in the offseason and giving up multiple first-round picks for him. They went 5-12. They have the number 1, or they would have the number 1 overall pick, but they traded it to the Texans in that trade. So just kind of a mess of a year for the Dolphins. Brian Flores had 4 years as the head coach, and he went 27-39. And in comes the new head coach for the Miami Dolphins. It is Eric Bieniemy. He gets hired as the head coach, his first stint as a head coach. Now, you obviously remember him as the longtime Chiefs offensive coordinator, but he actually spent this past year as the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. And what happened with the Saints? Well, Malik Willis won Rookie of the Year and improved to a superstar quarterback. So Eric Bieniemy knows a thing or two about offense, and he could be what unlocks Deshaun Watson even further and potentially gets the Dolphins to the postseason. So that was the first domino. The second domino was a surprising one. The Houston Texans fired David Culley. Now, David Culley only was 2 years as the head coach, and if you remember from the first year of this franchise, he actually won Coach of the Year. He put the Texans at an 11-6 record, and they made the postseason with the whole Deshaun Watson fiasco. So maybe there's a common denominator here between the 2 teams we've seen so far. But David Culley didn't have as good of a year. They kind of came back down to earth and went not as well, and he was actually fired. So David Culley was out after 2 years of a 16-17 record, and in comes 16-18 record, and in comes this place is Mike Vrabel, a man who is very well known in the AFC South, the former coach of the Tennessee Titans. He was also fired this offseason, so that is why he is now in Houston. And if you remember, before he became the Titans head coach, he was actually the defensive coordinator in Houston before he accepted that Titans head coaching job. So he knows the Texans organization, and he looks to bring winning culture that he had at Tennessee to Houston. Now, the third coach, obviously with the Vrabel going to the Texans, the Titans need a new coach, and here is where the biggest domino falls. Titans, winning for multiple seasons, lose Vrabel, they want to win now. And the Tennessee Titans, they bring in John Harbaugh as their head coach. Yes, the Baltimore Ravens head coach who just appeared in the Super Bowl with the Ravens. John Harbaugh leaves Baltimore. His contract actually expired this offseason, and the Tennessee Titans make him the highest paid coach in the NFL. He brings a winning culture to Tennessee. The contract expired, former coach of the year, former Super Bowl champion back in Super Bowl 47. He is now the man in Tennessee. So the Titans, they want to win now. Look for them next year. So there's 4 head coaching changes, obviously, with John Harbaugh now in Tennessee. The Ravens need a head coach. They have lost Harbaugh, who actually also brought all of his coordinators to Tennessee. So it's not like the Ravens can hire from within. And their new head coach is David Culley. Now, I couldn't use David Culley's actual scan because I unfortunately had already taken over the Ravens as an owner, so I couldn't hire him back. But I know it doesn't look like David Culley, but it is David Culley, the former Houston Texans head coach, brings a new coach to Baltimore after 15 years with John Harbaugh, who went 147-95. What a record in Baltimore. Now, David Culley, though, has experience in Baltimore. Before he was the head coach of the Houston Texans, he was a Baltimore passing game assistant in both 2019 and 2020, so he has experience with Lamar Jackson. It's not like Jackson's got to learn a totally new coordinator or a new head coach, as him and Culley have familiarity. But David Culley is the new head coach of the Super Bowl runner-ups in the Baltimore Ravens. And if you remember from the first year of the franchise, the Seahawks were the runner-ups in year one. They actually got a new coach after year one, and they were not very good in year two. So the Ravens are hoping that David Culley doesn't repeat that same pattern. He is the new head coach in Baltimore. But that'll do it for this episode. Pretty wild just coaching carousel. We haven't even started the offseason yet, which I can guarantee you this offseason is going to be crazy. I have some things in mind. We have some needs. I have simulated into the offseason to do the coaching carousel, so I have seen a couple of spoilers, but in terms of retirements, but I won't reveal them now. I'll reveal them next or tomorrow in the offseason live stream. I can't wait to see you guys there at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Hope you guys enjoyed the year 2 recap. If you're excited for year 3, make sure you drop that like button and subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.